Wonderful. So let's just get going then. So tonight, it's only 1 hour. I can only give you so much in 1 hour. I like to do much longer courses. Fa and I were discussing we might do something like that soon after lockdown ends. But for now, how to be a better parent and how to have a loving marriage. But there's more to it than being a better parent. What's most important about tonight is how you became who you are because of how your parents raised you. And when you understand that, that gives you the power to actually change your life. And then, or in conjunction, you will become a better parent to your children. So if you have children or you don't have children, this talk is still very valuable for you as an individual to help you have loving relationships as well and be a happier, more individual, independent person. All right, so the first slide, every animal, it's once they're babies. And then as you see these lions cuddling, everyone wants to cuddle, to love, to hug. Everyone has their babies, protects their babies. And every parent, regardless of the species, does the best they can. But there's no real course in being a parent, right? Basically, parents raise their children the way they were raised, at least to some extent. And this is what we're going to talk about tonight, is that really always the best way to raise your children or in their best interest? So let's start with the first question for you to think about. What are your children to you? Are they your children? Are they possessions? Are they something you want to be proud of? Are they a pet? Are they a hobby? Are they an investment for the future? What are your children to you? You need to think about that. If not right this minute, after this talk, for a little while after. Okay, now what's this? A sea sponge, right? Nah, it's an analogy for your child, or for you as a child. When we're born, we don't know anything, but we're quick to learn, right? You know what's amazing? A child can speak every single language in the world. We're not born with a propensity to speak one language in particular, right? We're not born with an accent. We're a sponge. And when we're born, we start to learn. And we learn what we see, what we hear, what we experience. So everything happens in your mind, because that's all you are, is your mind. Your mind is the sponge that absorbs information. So we'll be talking about the mind, basically. Now, your mind is like the computer hard drive. It stores information. It seems somebody's playing with fireworks outside. I don't know if you hear the explosions. Your mind stores information and it stores your emotions. Your emotions determine your reactions to every event, and that determines the outcome of your life events, your interactions. Because your interactions with people will determine their reaction to you, which means, will they like you? Will they hate you? Will they help you? Will they reject you? Will they try to, get in your way because they don't like you? Will they go out of their way to help you? All these things. And that's all because of your emotional reactions to events. And your emotions are based on the information and the state of your mind. So that's why we work with the mind. Okay? So now, let's look at this. All these different people from different cultures and races and things like that. There was once in Montreal, where I'm from, that's the French province, they made English illegal. And so any immigrant it was illegal for them to send their children to English school. They had to learn Quebecois French, which is not the same as Parisian French. And I remember in one of my shops, this cute little Chinese girl came in, and she, was trying to buy some films and things. It was a photo shop. And she goes, "Bonjour, yeah. Comment ça va, yeah?" See this tiny little petite Asian girl, Chinese girl, sounding like a truck driver, because that's how French Canadians sound. And she grew up there, and that's what she sounded like. Now, you are not really you. You are basically a product of circumstances. Who were your parents? Where were you born? What is the religion? What is the culture? What is the food? Everything about you, like the language you speak, is merely a product of the environment which you grew up in. So, for example, if Donald Trump, I'll pick him because everybody knows what Donald Trump sounds like and looks like. So if Donald Trump, at 1 day old, he was born to the same parents, same hospital, but at 1 day old, they took little baby Donald and they sent him off to India to be adopted and raised by parents in Gujarat province of India. Today, Donald, he would be talking like an Indian. His head would wobble, his hands would go like that. He would talk Hindi, not even English talking. He'd be a vegetarian. He'd be Hindu, he'd be totally different person. Same body, but totally different because of the environment he grew up in. My mother's from India, so I can do that well. So everything about you is not real. Your body is maybe real, you could say. Even that you can change. You can gain weight, lose weight, build muscles, be lazy, do nothing. You can take care of your skin and look young. You can go in the sun without sunscreen and age and look like you're 50 by the time you're 30. But you, the mind that you are, isn't real. It is formed entirely by the events and circumstances where you grew up. Now, on one hand, that sounds terrible, isn't it? Because then what are you? There's nothing authentic, nothing real about you, because everything about you is what you've been programmed with. But the beautiful part about this is, glass is recyclable. You know why? You can take a glass, smash it, melt it, and form it into something else. Totally new shape. Maybe a bowl, maybe a plate, maybe a different glass. And that is the beauty of the human being. As long as your mind is functioning, you have the potential, albeit a little bit difficult and hard work, but you do have the potential to totally change how you talk, totally change everything about yourself. Nothing is really fixed. Okay? So there's the good news. You can reform. And as far as parents go, you have to think about this. You are forming your child based on the environment they are growing up in. Everything about them is based on what you present to them. Okay. So now, raising a child. Now, for those of us who are, let's say 50, 40, 50, 60 years old, older, we know the difference of today's world, right? So this is a phone that your 6-year-old has today, a smartphone, an iPhone. And this is the phone when I was 6, little plastic toy. It's a totally different world. And likewise, probably when you grew up, it was a very different world than your parents grew up in. And it's really only about the last 40, 50 years that the world has significantly changed every few years. And so as a parent, you have to think that doing to your child what your parents did to you is not necessarily good or right because they are growing up in a totally different world. They have the internet, YouTube, Facebook, all these things, all these sources of information. They have people from all over the world that they're in touch with. Information coming into them from so many different ways, opinions. So raising your child the same way you were raised is not necessarily a good idea. We have to adapt. And if you think about the way you were raised and how your parents didn't understand you, and wanted you to behave a certain way that wasn't fitting for the world you were growing up in, you just multiply that by 1,000 and you know how your kids feel, because the world has changed so much more. Okay? So that's another point. What I do with my talks always is I give you a little piece and a little piece and a little piece, and then at the end we put it all together and we get a nice picture. So there's another piece. The world is totally different. You cannot raise your children the way you were raised. We need to adapt. Now, let me ask you another wonderful question for those of you who are parents. Parents always complaining. When I give this talk, I've given it a few times to parents in Singapore mainly. They're always complaining that their children are not obedient. They're not respectful. They don't do what they're told. They don't listen to me. They don't obey me, you know. And I'm asking you a question. If one night, the night that you got pregnant, did an angel appear at the foot of your bed, a glowing light, and an angel came and said, please, would you please, you know, get it on because I want to be born? It wasn't an angel, it was your phone giving that light. An angel didn't come and ask you. You chose to have a baby. You chose to bring another soul into this world. And as such, like I asked you that question in the beginning, did you choose to breed a slave? To breed a servant? Did you say, let's have a kid so that we will have someone who will give us money, who will take care of us, who will clean the house, who will serve us, who will do what we tell them? And do you like it when your parents expect that of you? No. So, in fact, your child is not your possession, but your obligation, your responsibility to raise them. You are the servant of the child because you made them come here. When you invite friends to your home for a dinner, is it not your duty to make sure they are comfortable, they eat well, they have good drinks, they have a nice time? Of course, you invited them to your home. So it is your obligation to give them a good time, to take care of them with everything they may want or need. And it is the same with your children. So if you want to have your child respect you and honor you and be wonderful to you, you must give them what they need to grow up to be a healthy adult. And then the respect, the love, the caring will come naturally. And they will be obedient. They will want to do what you want because you are actually their servant, their caretaker, not their slave master, right? So a very big change of attitude is required if you want to raise healthy children. And you have to think about how your parents raised you. Is it right in the way the world is today to be a slave and a servant? Are you acting out of guilt? And do you want your children to be there for you when you get older out of guilt or out of love? So think about that. When you had that child, it was your choice to invite them into your life, into your home. And so just like any guest, you have to think of how you're treating them. Okay? Unless you had the absolute intention to breed servants. Okay. Now, a problem with kids misbehaving is because they're missing something. There's something missing in their life. They're not getting what they need. So what does every human being need? From birth to death, our entire life, the most important thing that every human being needs is companionship. The seals, the birds, the penguins, the lions, everybody needs companionship, especially your children. Now imagine, I don't think you remember, but it's really a strange thing when you're born. You come out and go, oh my God, where am I? What are those huge monster creatures all around me? What is this place? It's very confusing. But we know we need companionship, right? And so look how the children are, little children. They're crawling all over you. They're touching your face. They're touching you. They're all over you. They just want to be hugged and cuddled. A baby will die without affection. And what's the biggest fear when you get old? What will happen? I'm going to be alone. Where am I going? Who is coming with me? Nobody. I'm alone. And everything you do in your life is so that you will have people like you, want to be with you. Let's face it, ladies, would you spend so much time on your makeup and your hair and your clothes and all your appearance if you really didn't care if anyone liked you and wanted to be with you? And the same goes for the men. Would you try so hard to make money, to be famous, to be rich, to dress well, to have a fancy car, a fancy house, if you didn't care if anyone liked you or wanted to be with you? No. Everything you do in your whole life is for the need of companionship. So we've had a few points we've covered so far. The first is that, well, one of them is that the baby is not your servant. You have to treat them with respect. You are raising that child to be an adult based on how you raise them. And the most important thing to everybody is companionship. So we have to think, are we giving what we really need for each other? Okay.
Excuse me, David.
Yes.
I think someone's waiting at the waiting room.
All righty. Now, how will I do that? I think I have to stop the slide and I have to find Zoom and I have to get this. Oh, yes, there are 3 people. There we go. All right. It looks like they're in.
All right.
All right. And okay. All right. So we'll go back to the slideshow. There we go. Okay. So companionship. Yeah. So that is the most important thing. Now, if you are not getting it, for example, good kids from good families, they join gangs, they become hoodlums, criminals. Why? Companionship. The whole idea of a gang is that you're in a family, right? The mafia, it's a family. Why would a good kid from a good family, good education, join a gang? Because there's no companionship at home. So think about that. That's very important. How much companionship are you giving to your children? We're going to get into exercises and ways to apply all of this. Don't worry. I'm not giving you theories without material to work with. All right, that's coming soon. Now, here's another point. Curiosity has its own reason for existence. Mr. Einstein said that. A child is curious about everything, right? Everything. We're so curious. We want to touch it, taste it, play with it, take it apart. Everything. Very curious. It's human nature. As you grow up, that curiosity is often destroyed because the parents tell you, don't bother me. Don't ask me questions. Put that down. Don't play with that. Don't do this. Don't do that, right? So it kills the curiosity. Now, curiosity has a reason. We're going to explain that in the next slide. But it's, as I said, a very strange world when we are born, when we come into this world. And we get to be curious. We want to understand everything. So look at a child's eyes. I love it. Those little children, maybe 1 year, 2 year, 3 years old. How they look. Oh, they're staring. And they're this and that. Staring. So curious. I love it. And look at parents, how they destroy that curiosity. So they are limiting the potential that that child will grow into as an adult. So we must encourage curiosity because curiosity brings a perpetual expansion of the mind. Doesn't matter what you're curious about. Curiosity is a quality. It's like a muscle. Curiosity is like a hunger. Like you have tapeworms in your stomach. You eat constantly because the worms are eating all your food before you can assimilate and digest it. You need a curiosity that is insatiable. So you're always learning. And that is what you must encourage in your child. Now, unfortunately, it'll drive a parent crazy because the child should always be saying, why? And the parent doesn't always know why. So you get frustrated, you get angry, and tell the kid, shut up and go to your room. And when you say, shut up, be quiet, what you're doing is you're killing their quality of curiosity. And you're destroying their self-esteem, their character, their desire for knowledge, their motivation for life. So here's a little exercise what you need to do. You put your kid in a room with 50 things, 100 things. You do this as often as possible. Let them play, touch, break, take apart anything they want with everything in that room. And no right or wrong. You don't step in and say, here, let me show you how this is done. But let them be curious and play with things like minerals, quartz, amethyst. Minerals are an amazing thing. That was one of my businesses. They're fascinating. Pottery. How do you make a pot? How do you make pottery? That's amazing. My first interest when I was a child is how do you get a picture on a piece of paper? I was fascinated. How do you do that? So my first profession, I was a photographer. I ended up owning several photo labs because I was fascinated by that. I wondered, how does an airplane fly? That's my airplane. I don't have it anymore, but that was my airplane. So I learned to fly. When you learn to fly, you learn meteorology. You learn about the weather. You learn about navigation. You learn mechanics. You learn aerodynamics. You learn how an airplane flies. So remember, your child is not your servant. You are your child's servant. The most important quality is curiosity. The most important need is companionship. And so therefore, you must serve your child by feeding them their curiosity and being a companion at the same time. All right? So are you teaching your child to be a talking book? Memorize, memorize, memorize. Don't think, just memorize so you pass the exams well. Or to be open-minded. Success is a result of creativity, that's for sure, okay? I only finished high school, 11th grade, 16 years old. I've owned over 30 different businesses, retail stores, nuclear waste remediation, alternate energy, cancer cures, a bicycle factory, international trade, properties, stones and minerals. I've owned over, like I said, over 30 different companies in several countries. And I never went to school because I'm curious. I learn all these different things. So here's another exercise for you to do with your kid. Aside from going in the room with them, and I'm just saying a room, but providing them with so many different things to play with so they can try different things and find what they're interested in, Another great exercise, which feeds you as adults, as a couple, as well as with your children. If you don't have children, it's a great thing as a couple. Even you're dating, it's a wonderful thing. Get a world map. And every week you study one country. The culture, the religion, the food, the language, the economy, the weather, everything, the geography, everything you can learn about that country. And I say, pardon me, I say for a week because some countries are big, but Singapore will take you about 2 hours. Okay, so you can move on quicker. But the point is, let's take every week at least and go through the world map, every single country in the world. And you do that together. It is learning. It is curiosity. It is expanding your mind. It is companionship. You see, there's many ways you can feed the needs of you as a couple as well as a family, as well as for your child. And you do that, and you'll see how well behaved your children are, how smart they are, how well they'll succeed, because that is what you should want. You don't want to raise a slave who's going to take care of you and be there for you when you're older. Honestly, I have a problem with that. I see too many single women, as I'm back on the dating now, too many single women, they're 40, 50 years old, they still live with their mother. One woman, she was 40-something years old, had a 10 o'clock curfew. How is she ever going to find a man? Because the mother demands she's there. It is not right, because you're robbing your child of a life. You have a right to a life. They have a right to a life. So if you want your child to respect you out of love, you must respect them as a human individual. All right? And you will see how wonderful they treat you. All right? So develop this quality of curiosity by learning new things all the time, exposing to as many different possibilities. You know what book I used to read when I was a kid? The Yellow Pages. Of course, that's before the internet. Do you know the Yellow Pages is a telephone directory for businesses? So it was a book that basically listed every single type of business and every company in that business. I used to read the Yellow Pages. So I would learn all the different possible businesses I could do. You know, that's something. When your kid, you know, when you say to your kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? What profession do you want? So I don't know. So, okay, let's get the Yellow Pages. That's a listing of every possible business there is. Let's read that together and learn a little bit about every type of business until you find what your child likes. Or you know what? Maybe what you like. Maybe you're not happy in your job, in your life. You might find a better life doing the same thing. As I said, this is not a talk just about parents or children. It's about adults getting a life finally. Okay? So again, when your kid is playing with things, right, don't jump in and say, no, 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 that's not how to do it. Let me do it for you. That's the worst thing you can do. Let them play and don't worry about it. Let them play outside. Let them be a kid. Too much extra tuition, you know, study more math, study more science, study, books. Too much tuition is no good. You've got to let the kid play. Let them play with Legos. Let them play in the mud. Let them be dirty. Don't fill them with fear of things. Let them experience, hands-on experience life. Okay? Now, success. This is important. As I told you what my success has been in life. Your mind is the hub of the wheel. This is a bicycle wheel. Your mind is the hub of a wheel. The spokes are your skills. What can you do? Are you good at sports? Are you good at, I don't know, at movies, at filming, at photography? What are you good at? Those are all your skills. Now, the more skills you have, the better the wheel will roll, right? Can you imagine a wheel with one spoke? It's going to be pretty wobbly. That's not going to move around too smoothly. So if your mind is strong, you have many spokes, many different abilities, the wheel will be round, and all the bumps of life, it'll be able to roll through smoothly. The other thing is this: success is 20% skill. It's what I've learned, and I've taught my students. They've succeeded with this. Is 20% skill and 80% your mind, which is your personality, your character, your EQ. So instead of pushing your kid to do 10 hours a day on piano, so they'll be really good at piano when that's not their natural talent, let them develop balanced EQ. Because I have worked in my businesses, I've had 3 software companies, and the programmers, the guys who wrote the code, very good at code, but horrible at human relations. They were too obnoxious to deal with. Their EQ was terrible. So it was impossible to work with them, so they could never succeed, you see? Even they had good skill. So the best skill you can teach your kid is EQ. And this is the things I've been telling you, how to develop that in your child, all right? Healthy and balanced. Because you know, you can lose your money, you can lose your house, your car, your job, God forbid you lose an arm, but you can't lose your mind. And if you do lose your mind, it doesn't matter because you won't know anyway. The advantage of losing your mind is you don't know. But let's assume that's the last thing you don't lose. And your mind is your EQ. That's what keeps it strong, stable. So that's why it's the most important quality to develop in your kid. And that comes through loving companionship and treating them with respect. All right? So success is good character. That's what you need to develop in your child. Now, children do not learn by words. They learn by observation. They learn by interpreting their observation and hands-on experience, right? Confusion destroys self-esteem. I put that down at the bottom because I want you to know that's the other side of the coin. When you get confused, don't you feel stupid? When your mind is forming as a child and you are very confused because you thought you understood something and it turned out you were totally wrong, at the time your mind is forming, what do you think that confusion does to your self-esteem? Kills it for life. Parents get angry because their kids don't listen. And I have to laugh at this one always. Parents complaining to me, my 4-year-old doesn't listen. I explain and I explain and they just don't understand. And I go, of course, he's 4 years old. How could a 4-year-old understand what you're telling them? How foolish it is for parents to expect their little children to actually understand. And what happens when you're explaining to the child? You say, do you understand? They go, yes. No. They can't. So you have to remember that when you're angry and frustrated because your child isn't listening or doing what you said, they don't understand. They're too young to understand, okay? They don't understand the words. They understand by observing what's going on, right? It's fire, don't touch it, it's hot. Or the stove or the frying pan, don't touch it, it's hot. Okay, boom, touch. And now I understand. Now I understand what it means, right? In Canada, we had a saying that when the little kid, 5, 6 years old, comes home from school crying because the big bully said, you're stupid, you're ugly, you're short, blah, blah, blah. And you go, oh. And mommy says, what happened? Oh, he said I'm stupid and blah, blah, blah. And she says, sticks and stones can break your bones, right? Because if they throw sticks at you, beat you, and so on. Sticks and stones can break your bones, but names can never hurt you. It's just words. Let him say what he wants. You know you're a good person. You know you're smart, blah, 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 all of these things. It doesn't matter what he says. So you go, oh, okay. You're 5, 6 years old. You go, all right, you're right. Yeah, he didn't hit me. He didn't kick me. Didn't hurt me. You're right, mommy. Okay, good. Later that evening, daddy comes home. Mommy and daddy start talking. And all of a sudden, they're talking. And you're, 5, 6, you don't understand what they're talking about because who knows? He's playing with his secretary. She wants more money he doesn't have. Who knows? You don't understand these things. And next thing you know, you see them talking. Nobody's hitting each other. And mommy is crying and they're screaming and they're fighting and they're hurt and mommy goes running. And what do you see? Words can hurt you. Wow, words can really hurt. So you've learned words are the great weapon causing pain and suffering, and you're stupid because you thought you understood something so simple, and now you see you didn't get it right at all. You were totally wrong. So you feel really stupid. Your self-esteem goes down. You get confused. You don't know what to believe anymore. You don't trust yourself anymore. People tell you things. You think you understand. You think it's simple, but then you always doubt yourself. And you grow up as an adult with a very low self-esteem, very insecure, always doubting yourself. So what are you doing to your kids? Are you teaching them by example? What are you teaching them by example? Think about that. What is your child observing, and how are they interpreting it? Because it's not just what you tell them, it's what you do that matters. Okay? And again, who are you? How strong a character do you have? When someone says, you moron, you idiot, do you think, yeah, he's right, I am an idiot, I am a moron? Because you grew up with this kind of confusion when you were a kid? So please think about that, how you're raising your children, but how you were raised. Because this information, it's only a touch, right? I have much longer courses to really go into this in depth, but this gives you a touch of how you can change your personality to become much stronger, much more confident, and therefore much more successful in your life, in your work, and in your marriage, your partnership, your relationships. Okay? Now, my father always said, you treat a child like a dog. You beat him until he learns. That was his attitude. And you know what? In a way, he's kind of right. I could see some validity to that. But you know what? It depends on the personality of the child. If you want to run your fastest, really, really your fastest, we should try this in the Olympics. Get a man-eating lion to chase you. This guy had just had a meal, and so he was sleeping it off, so it's okay. It's one of the lions I saw in Africa last year. But you get a man-eating lion to chase you, and boy, you are going to run your fastest. So if you believe in caning your kid, if you believe in punishments, if you believe in screaming, in instilling fear, or if the kid comes home with a 98%, you scream and say, you couldn't get 100? If you believe in that way of treating your child, or if that's how you were treated, it could make you run fast and win the race. But you know what? It could equally destroy that child's self-esteem. And then they spend their whole life cowering in a corner. Because we are born with a personality, the whole concept of astrology. And any parent will say, I don't have kids, right? But I talk to a lot of parents. And I think actually because I don't have kids makes me perfect for teaching parents how to be better parents, because I have it from an objective point of view. And all the parents that came to my talks in Singapore were always reporting right away, within a week, their relationship with their kid is totally different. And in their marriage also very, very much improved. So every human being is born with a personality, right? Because those sponges, they come in different shapes and sizes. And then it gets formed into the adult. So you have to watch what the personality of your child is and treat them appropriately, right? Because the rule by fear doesn't always work, okay? Now it's a real video. Somebody sent it to me as a joke, but I thought, wow, this is just perfect.
Yes. Yes. What's he doing? Okay. No. No. Tom's working.
I know that. See, it is terrible because that kid is going to be traumatized for the rest of their life. But you get the point. Is sometimes you have to use some very strange methods. Why I like this is one of the big things that parents complained about is my kid won't eat dinner. Kid doesn't want to eat dinner. And there's no way I can get them to eat. And then an hour later, they're hungry after I've cleaned everything up. So how can I get my kid to eat? And I said, well, very simple. Now this, you want to teach your kid discipline? You, a parent, you need to have discipline. You tell the kid, if you don't eat your dinner now, I'm putting everything away, and there's no food until tomorrow morning, breakfast tomorrow morning. No more food tonight, no matter what you say. Do you understand me? And the kid will say, yes, I understand you. I don't want to eat. I understand. But like I said, they don't understand. Okay, you're sure? Yes, good. Okay, clean everything up. An hour later, Mommy, I'm hungry. Daddy, I'm hungry. I know. I told you, no food until tomorrow morning. You said you understand me. There's no more food till tomorrow. And the kid will cry and will scream and blah, blah, blah. But you have to have the discipline to say, no, we told you. Because they learn by observation, experience. So you're teaching that child that this is what you have now. Value it, appreciate it, because you may not get another chance for a very long time. So you do this once, maybe twice. Your kid will eat dinner every day after that. But it's more important. They learn to value what they have at every moment. I don't think you should really take the little dolly and beat it to death, because that may be too traumatic. But just simply that. Have the discipline to say, no, nothing till tomorrow. You have a choice. So you're teaching the child to learn to value, to make decisions, to think before making a decision. Of course, maybe they don't understand it, but they're learning. Okay? So that's how you deal with the kid that doesn't want to eat dinner. All right. Now, when we're ruled by fear, fear becomes our master and limits our capacity to learn, right? Because, the word petrified, he became petrified with fear. Do you know what petrified means? Petrified means turned to stone. When a fossil is basically a live animal or wood, a tree that's millions of years ago got buried and basically became petrified. What it is, it's called petrified wood or petrified fossils. It turns to stone. So when you are so fearful, you turn to stone, you freeze. Fear destroys creativity. It destroys your ability to adapt. In your marriage, anything in your life. Have you ever been faced with needing to adapt? How many arguments would have been avoided or turned out differently if you could have adapted instead of holding and sticking to your fixed opinions? If you take a box, how many sponges, soft sponges, can fit in a box? And how many rocks can fit in the same box? Now, this is very appropriate because we've just passed the lockdown for 3 months. And you know what? There was MERS, there was SARS, now there's COVID. COVID is not as bad an illness as Ebola, as SARS, as MERS. It's not as bad. It's not as dangerous. But now they said we're going to have to lock down the world. And you can be sure, based on history, something really bad, something worse than COVID is going to come. And they're really going to lock us down. And who knows, in this next winter season, where flu really takes over. You know, there's like 40 million people die of flu every year. So you're going to combine flu with COVID, which is basically a flu. They may lock us down again in another 6-8 months. So let me ask you, for those of you who have been trapped with your family for 3 months in the same home, how did the rocks get along? How did the sponges get along? So you better start working on becoming a sponge right now. Becoming more flexible, not living with fear, so that we can live together when we are locked down in the future. Alrighty, so here we go. In summary, I'll just look, there's questions. How old are your kids now? I say, I don't have kids. And what were your greatest challenges with No, I don't have kids. I've had students, I've had employees, and I'll tell you what, owning a business with a lot of employees, you're nothing more than a babysitter. Oy. And my students, they're like children. When I was I had my schools in the different countries I lived, in Colorado, in New Zealand, in Montreal, and I had a lot of students then, and I'm like the parent to the students. And you know what? Age means nothing. I know people that are 80. One guy I know, he is 87, and he's still about 8-10 years old as far as emotional maturity goes. Physical age doesn't mean you're more mature. So I chose to spend my life helping as many people as I can in the world. So I never wanted the obligation of having my own children, because I know I would be so devoted to them. But the challenges of raising adult children is basically people think they know. This is something we covered in last week's talk about relationships, is that people think they know. And when you think you know, you stop listening. And as soon as you stop listening, you stop learning. And if you don't learn, you don't change. So if you say, I want to learn, I want to change, but I want everything to fit with what I like and what I know, that's the biggest challenge. Getting through to someone to make them understand that they do not understand. That's the biggest challenge. Because when you think you know something and you are wrong, you think you know. It's impossible to get you to understand that you don't know. So that's the human challenge. Okay. So here we go. In summary, the mind is what matters most, not just information. You have to develop a curious, open mind. It's like anything. It's easier to do when you're young. It's harder to do when you're old. But if you put in the effort, you can do it at any age. As a parent, set the right example with your behavior and communication and respect for everyone. And you find your child's personality and talents and encourage them for what is right for them. And you're asking about me with my kids. I can say that with my employees. I had 8 companies at one time. I was 25 years old. I had built up and owned 8 companies, 3 of which were retail stores. 2 of those stores were 1-hour photo labs at the time when we used film. And I would make my rounds every day to all of my companies. So every day I went to every one of my businesses, every shop. And if I got into one of the shops and there were a lot of customers, everyone was busy, and the garbage cans were overflowing, I took down the garbage. I mopped the floors. I cleaned the windows. I did everything. I did not say to one of my employees, you go do that dirty job because I am too important. No, you're busy doing your job. You keep doing your job. I'll take care of this for you. Right? And some employees were good with people. So I had them work in the front at the cash, serving customers. Some didn't like people. I had them in the back in the production factory. You know, so you find the talent of each one and you put them wherever they belong based on their personality. All right, so in a way that's sort of, you know, a little bit touching to your question about if I had kids. I love this story. This lady takes her kid to the great spiritual master and says, tell my child to stop eating candy, so much candy. And he says, bring him back in 2 weeks. Okay. 2 weeks later, mother brings back the kid. And right away, the master says, don't eat so much candy. And the mother says, you couldn't tell him that 2 weeks ago? He says, 2 weeks ago, I ate a lot of candy. How can I tell him not to do what I do, right? I had a customer in my photo store. He was a professional photographer. And he was a happy guy, old, happy guy. And you know, when he was young, his father was a lawyer, his grandfather was a lawyer. So of course, he became a lawyer because they made him become a lawyer. You have to carry the family business. So he became a lawyer. And within about a year after graduating and starting in the family practice, he became very ill. He got hospitalized. And the doctor said, your illness will kill you. You need 6 months off minimum, because the stress of getting into the law practice was killing you. You need 6 months to a year rest to recover. Okay. In the time off, he took up his hobby of photography to pass time. And he healed very quickly. And he found he loved photography. So if he stayed a lawyer, he would have died by the time he was 30, 35 years old. But because he became a photographer, which was his personality, he lived a very long life. So you have to be careful what you're imposing on your children, and think, I'm not telling you disrespect your parents, but you know what? If your parents love you, they want you to be happy. So you have to think about what you're doing with your life, your profession, your job. Is that making you happy? You have to think about what you're having your partner do. Is that what makes them happy? Or you only think about yourself? Or your parents only thinking about themselves because they bred a slave? Well, you know, slavery has been abolished. And I think that's the best way you'll respect and love them, because you'll be healthier, happier, more loving, more able. So ironically, by perhaps disobeying what your parents want, you will in the end give them even more of what they want. So think about that for yourself, and think about that for how you're raising your kids, right? Because you don't want to raise a sick adult. You don't want to be a sick adult, because we got a lot of sick adults out there, all right? So I'm going to end with a little story of good intentions. 2 little stories. One of my students in America, he was a photographer. And one day his 6-year-old put all his cameras in a bucket of water. And he's like, oh my God, what did you do? What did you do? Why did you do that? And the kid says, I wanted to help Daddy. I want to wash his cameras. He doesn't understand, right? Remember, they don't understand words. They don't understand. You've got to show things by experience. But you can't get angry when they act out of good intentions. And here's one fellow I had to deal with in India. I'm going back, 20 years? No, 30 years. Yeah, 30 years ago. India was very different back then. No computers, nothing. I'm in a little town. I go to the train station to buy a train ticket for the next day. I want to book a ticket for the next day. I'm traveling on my own. I'm 28, 29 years old, backpacking and this. So I go, and there's one fellow. I said, I want a ticket to go there tomorrow. He says, no, sir, you come tomorrow. Many train. Don't buy ticket today. You come tomorrow, buy ticket. I said, but no, I'd rather buy the ticket now because I feel more comfortable. You know, I'm traveling. And no, sir, many train. Every day there is train. You come tomorrow, you buy ticket tomorrow. Every day there is train, many seat. You come tomorrow. Please, I'd feel better if I could just buy the ticket. And then, no. Back and forth, forget it. Not going to give me the ticket. Okay. So the next day, I've booked the next hotel in the next town. I've checked out of this one. I get my bag. I go, same guy. Can I have a ticket? He says, no, sir, no train. No. Yesterday, you told me there'd be a train. I need to go. I want a ticket. No, sir, no train going there today. But you told me there'd be a train. Yes, sir, but on this day of week, there is never. Every second day, the train goes there. You come tomorrow. Tomorrow, there is train, but today, there is never train today. You come tomorrow. But I'm all ready to go, and I had to go. And I start freaking out, lose my temper. I was certainly not as calm as I am now. India was very difficult to travel through. So I'm freaking out, screaming at him, saying, why, if you knew there would not be a train today, why did you tell me there would be? I did not want to get you upset. He didn't want to disappoint me. Do you know in India, it's a funny thing. Everyone has a watch and all the watches are broken. So you say to someone, what time? He looks and he says, it is 10 past 2. 3 minutes later, you ask someone else, it is 4:30. They tell you the time on their watch. They don't want to say no. They don't want to disappoint you. They just don't think of the future. So think about that. When something happens that isn't great, that it could be done out of good intentions, all right, before you freak out. And if it's out of good intentions, think of the doctor who is operating on the patient and the patient dies. The doctor didn't want to kill the patient. His intention was to save him. But it doesn't always work out. So remember that when something goes wrong, when your kids, your partner, your employees, anybody does something wrong, find out the intention. If the intention was evil, to hurt you, that's one thing. But if the intention was good and they just screwed up, they made a mistake, they didn't know better. The kid doesn't know that you don't wash cameras by dunking them in a bucket of water. Don't be angry, be patient and explain, okay? So here we are, that's my website, relationshipcoachonline.com, easy to remember. My email, I sent it to you in the beginning of the chat, but here it is again. I love teaching, talking, helping people on many topics. So email me, write to me. We can do one-on-one session. We do group sessions, whatever you like. All right. So now I have a couple of questions. Let me read. Just an opinion. Adults who are exposed to the world realize who they are and what they want in life. But adults who are not exposed might think they are the person their parents mold them to be. They may never realize who they are meant to be. Exactly my point. Their parents didn't raise them well. So it's your job now to raise your children better by exposing them to, right, 50 or 100 things in a room every week, the world map, everything, all these things, different foods. Cook a different food every week. There should be a dish from a different country. Expose your kids. And if you are now an adult, expose yourself. The internet is there. Mr. Google is very wise and happy to help. And if it is somebody you know, then try to feed them a little bit of information about the world. Invite them on a trip, whatever. So it is a point, but now let's do something about it. Don't just sit there, do something. Next, thank you, David, for the good talk. One of my biggest challenges in parenting is consistency, and I'm constantly doing self-reflect and check if I have derailed from time to time. Yes, always have to watch yourself. You always have to, you know, there's 5 questions. If you email me, I'll email them back to you. But the 5 questions you ask yourself every night when you go to bed. What did I do well today? What did I do that I should not have done? What did I do that I could have done better? What didn't I do that I should have done? And what do I want to do tomorrow? So if you email me, I'll email those to you with examples if you like. So yeah, I mean, life is like that. You know, my whole life, every day, all day, day and night, I'm always reflecting on what did I say? What did I do? My relationship's always good because I'm always thinking before I speak. I think, what did I say? Oh, somebody is upset. What did I do wrong? What did I say wrong? You have to think always so that you learn. And remember, the biggest obstacle for a human being is thinking you know, thinking you understand. As soon as you're sure you understand or know something, shoot yourself. You're finished. You're done. You're not learning. You're not going to go anywhere with life. So you have to be willing. You know, my greatest asset is I know I'm stupid. I always said that. I'm stupid. I know I'm stupid. I know nothing. Someone starts explaining something to me, even if I know it, I said, please tell me. Because maybe there's 1, 2 words that I didn't know before. Something I can learn new. So there's the greatest quality. knowing that you don't know or understand anything when someone is explaining to you. So your mind is wide open and fully present so that you're constantly learning. And that's where you'll see the flaws in your own personality so you can be a better human being. Okay, so there we go. Only 5 minutes late, not too bad. Usually I talk too much. Wow. That's why my nickname is Swami Ananda. I am Swami Ananda because, you know, Ananda is meaning bliss, happiness, bliss. And I'm Ananda because I go on and on and on and on and on. All right, I never shut up. Okay, so there you go. Thank you. And yeah, any questions? You want to unmute your microphone and talk to me or text it in? I'm here.
Yes, please unmute yourselves and feel free to ask anything. David, I feel that, you know, most of the time, as human beings, we do things without realizing the importance of having knowledge. We get into relationship without even having the skills needed to be in a relationship. We get married, you know, and have a partner in life without acquiring the knowledge. And then we become parents also again without, you know, acquiring the right parenting skills. And isn't that the root of, you know, how all sorts of problems and issues in life comes out?
Yeah, that's that saying, the blind leading the blind. And the problem is that parents do what they were done to. So in other words, how your parents raised you is most likely how you will raise your kids unless you study something, take courses, read books, whatever it is. But the most important thing you can do is just simply observe the reactions of your child or your partner in a relationship. And based on how they respond, you know what you're doing, if it's right or wrong or good or bad. And as long as you know, you don't know, you don't understand, then you're more open to adapt based on the reactions that you're getting. If you stick your hand on a hot stove, you're not going to leave it there to be absolutely certain that it's burning your skin. You've learned. You pull away. So it's the same thing. I know, I mean, it's ridiculous. You need a license to drive a car. You need a license in some countries to do anything, to cut hair. But you don't need a license to have children? This is unbelievable messed up human society. Yeah, so basically that's why I'm here. I mean, I'm doing what I can to help people be better parents and have better relationships. So
I've seen many parents who go like, you know, my parents were too strict when I was young. So when I have my own kids, I'm not going to be strict at all, you know. So then they also end up spoiling the kids. So not wanting to follow what their parents did could also be something bad for the children.
of course, when a pendulum swings entirely from one side to the whole other opposite side, that's not balance. We need to get into balance. But yes, I mean, it is the most bizarre thing of human society. People are having children without any understanding of how to raise them because they don't have a variety of experiences growing up. You see, as a parent, you only have your experiences growing up with your parents. You didn't get to grow up with different parents in different countries so that you can assimilate a variety of knowledge to raise your children well. And then, you know, I meet people here and they say, well, I'm Asian, that's what we do. And I say, well, you're not Asian. You're formed into being an Asian because of where you're born, but you, the consciousness that I am speaking to, you're a soul, you're a spirit. You can be anything you want. But yes, I mean, it's a bizarre thing with human society that is not taught. Yeah, it's a dilemma.
So guys, do feel free to jump in, or I'll just continue talking to David.
It's often like that. 100 people in the room and there's only 2 or 3 that ever ask a question.
Okay, I have to say this, David. I disagree with sending a kid to bed without dinner just because, you know, the kid decided not to have dinner. I always believe that, you know, lots and lots of love can never spoil a kid. So for me, love comes first, even before discipline. I have 2 kids now, you know, and they are 21 and 23 years old. And, you know, it's always you eat whenever you want to eat, you know, even it's during your bedtime, that's fine, as long as you don't go hungry, you know. So, yeah.
Yeah, but that's because that's your style of feeding them. Westerners don't do that. Westerners have set times for meals. You know, that's one of the reasons I love living in Penang. It doesn't matter if it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I can walk out and get food. All right. In some countries, you can't do that. It's not as flexible. So that's one of the differences between people who've asked that, had that problem, and what you're saying. But the other point is that we're teaching much more to the child than just about eat your dinner. You're teaching them that they have to value what they get. But if you can have food anytime and have anything anytime you want, you don't develop the discipline to value something, making it precious. And that quality has to be applied to everything in life.